working on a 2011 Mustang. We're going to be removing the inner door panels. We're going to be replacing the upper speakers, get a little bit better sound out of them, and see what kind of quality we can get from the factory head unit. We're going to start by first removing this panel here. This panel actually has access to the rear view mirror, along with holding the rear view mirror control. First thing we're going to do is come up right up to the top of the mirror, get far behind here using one of these nice nylon prying tools. We're going to get behind it and give it a little bit of a push, and it's going to pop out. This is held in by two clips and guides. Here are your clips here, top and bottom. And we also need to unplug this harness. This harness unplugs from the bottom here. The next step is removing the door handle. The door release handle is here. There is a large Torx that sits right behind this plastic panel. In order to pull this panel off, a good thing to use is either a small screwdriver or a hook tool. We want to get inside here, pulling the handle away, get down to the bottom. At that point we can then pry away, gently of course. It's held in by plastic clips just built onto the panel, right there. It's just 3 clips. They go in and they just pop right in. When you pop it out, you just remove it completely. So we want to get in here with our Torx and loosen this up. You want to be gentle at first. It is probably held in pretty tight. Once we do have it loose, we can back it all the way out. Some people like to use power tools for this. On a plastic piece, I tend to use a hand tool. It takes a little bit more, but it comes out without breaking anything. One good tip is when dealing with your screws, keeping them in a safe place, you can use an old ice tray. Take your screws, pop them in the tray. Later on, if you want to mark each one, you can do that. If not, just keep it random and make sure you keep track of what screw goes where into your ice tray. Alright, so this is the last portion of the top of the door that needs to come off, and as you can see, if you don't keep your hand there, it just pops straight up. Again, another piece held in by itself on plastic clips. Just comes straight up and off. With that, what we want to do is get underneath the front that's held in by a clip here. It slides into a location at the back. So what we want to do is take our nylon pry tool, get underneath the front of this, and pop it straight up. Okay? With that, we can then pull away, gently away. As you can see, it does have this clip here that fits right into the fixture on the door panel itself. Okay. We have one more Torx screw in this panel, right here at the door handle. What we want to do is remove the plastic panel here, and it again is held in by clips on itself. It's just plastic, so we want to go at the top corner, pull away from that, and then it just slides straight up. As you can see, these have kind of a hook to them, an angle, and it just drops into a location into the door panel. We take our T30 Torx once again, we come inside the door panel, and we remove this screw. Alright, now this door does have one hidden screw. Kind of hard to see from this angle, but if we do get down low, we have one screw that's hidden right here behind this panel. It is a 7mm. What we want to do is get in there with our socket and take that out. Now we've taken every screw out from the center of our door panel. We want to remove the screws on the perimeter of the panel. We want to start here. We want to just pop this little clip away. Now this clip stays in place. It has a little tang on it that holds it there. We want to get into our 7mm. We want to take that out. So now we're ready to remove the panel. What we want to do is, this is held in by guides that actually, when we lift up and away, we can pull the door panel away. We still need to disconnect our door release handle. Alright. Now to release the cable from the door, we need to compress the sides of our clip here, and then that slides out. With that, we guide our cable through there, and we release that portion of it right there. Now, one thing we need to do is release all the rest of our connections, our door locks, and our secondary speaker. Now we're going to remove our premium quality Ford speaker, and we use an S2 Torx bit for that. Get that right in and pull all 4 of the screws out. Nice to use a magnetic bit if you can on this, so that if your screw comes out, it really doesn't fall off. Again, we're going to use our ice tray. Pulled all our screws. So far, so good. All right. Pull our speaker out. We're going to pinch off on the plug here and pull that straight up. Here is again our premium Ford speaker, and this is what we're replacing with a kicker coaxial speaker. You might notice a difference in the two. Both coaxial, a little bit better quality coming from the kickers. These are a nice speaker, great factory upgrade. You're keeping your head unit. These are efficient enough to take advantage of the power in the head unit you have already, and still sound really great. There's our difference. Back, front, and they are a direct bolt-in speaker. Okay. Now you heard me mention these are a bolt-in speaker. To really make them a bolt-in speaker, we're going to go with this Metra plug. Now this part number 72-5600 has the correct plug for the car and also has the correct terminals for the speaker. Now this is pretty straightforward. We have a small terminal, a large terminal to match our positive and negative polarities on our terminals. Okay, so now we're going to install our speaker, again using the correct plugs on the correct side of the terminals. And then we're going to plug this right in to the factory wiring harness. These are great plugs. There's no guessing about polarity. We know these will be correct when they're in. Make sure we tuck our wires back into the door, put our speaker into place, line up our screw holes, and that's as easy as it gets, folks. There is not much work to that. It's a great upgrade for a factory speaker. It gets you really great sound. Here we are again in the back of our 2011 Mustang. As you can see, this Mustang has had some additions made to it, of course in the sake of safety and chassis stiffness. Your car may not have this, which will also make this process much easier for you. We're going to be removing the side panels in order to access the rear speakers. The rear speakers reside underneath this panel here, and in order to get this panel out, the side panels do have to come out. Now what we have is we have a Torx bit right behind here, and then we have a 14mm bolt right here. These two have to come out, and once we have this loose, there's a clip that resides just behind this area here of this panel, and it has to pop straight out. And then we can pull this whole section off, get this section off, and hopefully have access to that rear deck. Pull that off and get to our rear speakers. So we're going to take our S2 Torx bit and remove the hook here. Just go right inside, get our Torx in, and take this piece right out. And as always, we're going to take this and we're going to put it away in a safe place so we don't lose it or damage it. And the next item is this 14mm bolt. This holds your seat belt in place, so we want to make sure we get that off. And that will allow us to get that panel loose. Once it's loose, angle tight. Pull that away and set that off to the side. Now that we have our panel loose, what we're going to do is work to get this out. Again, this vehicle being equipped with the roll bar makes it a little bit tighter to do. We want to make sure we get all of our straps and belts out of the way. This is pretty pliable plastic. It does take some, again, some finagling to get it out of a vehicle like this with the safety cage in place. In a vehicle without it, probably be far easier to do. So again, our Mustang is equipped with a roll bar, which does give us a few challenges. Nothing that can't be overcome, but just be aware that in your vehicle, if you do not have this piece will come completely out, won't be in your way. In this case, what we'll have to do is get this as high as we can onto the roll bar. What we're trying to avoid is any more interior cosmetic changes, such as having to cut this panel just to clear it. We can still work with this panel in place, we just have to do it from underneath. So what we're going to do now is remove the factory speakers, get that area prepped. We're also going to install a bit of sound deadening material, kind of cut back on the resonance in that rear deck. It's just a big long piece of metal. So if we can cut back on that resonance, we can try and get some better sound from our upgraded speakers. So now we're going to remove the 4 6mm screws that hold our speakers into the rear deck. Our speaker should be up and out. You might notice some differences between the rear speaker and the front speaker. This is what's known as a full range speaker. Some people do refer to this as a whizzer cone speaker. Paper material for the cone and for the small whizzer cone. Not the greatest thing, been around for a long time, works pretty well, but not great for fidelity. We're going to unplug our harness and pull the speaker right out. We're going to also install these boom mat speaker baffles. We're going to install these from the top. They're going to drop right in. Then our speakers, and by the way, we are using some beautiful Kicker KS68 speakers, a nice coaxial speaker. Again, a great upgrade for your factory system. We're going to put those right in. We're going to bolt them right into place just like we did with our door speakers. Of course, you notice those did not get these. Not enough space back there. We do have plenty of room in our trunk. We want to keep the speaker energy moving forward. We don't want to waste it in the trunk. So what I like to do with our baffles is give myself some clearance for the wire. We are going to be using, once again, our adapters that allow us to use the factory harness, and just trimming off a bit of the baffle that gives a path for the wire to go in, and then once we have everything screwed down, they will go nowhere from there. So what I'm going to do is guide my baffle in from the top, drop it right down into my location, making sure that the flange portion of the baffle sits up top. I'm also going to guide my wires through that area I just relieved or cut out so that we have the wires right in the baffle with the speaker. Baffle will sit nice and tight to the deck, also sealing off any other noise and helping with eliminating some of the resonance. And again, this large flat deck will get rid of some of that and keep that speaker energy moving forward into the cabin of the car, once again not being wasted in the trunk of the car. Okay, now with our baffles in place, what we want to make sure we do is locate the screw holes and create them in the baffle. So with a small pick, we go right through into the factory mount and make sure we make a nice size hole so the screw follows it. So now on the rear speaker holes, what we want to do is make sure we find them just like we did on the front. Of course, with our rear glass in the way, it's something difficult to do from up top. So what we can do is we take our pick and go right through the center of our factory mount and come right through the top of our baffle. Now we're going to drop our speaker down into our baffle. First we're going to plug it in, again using these wonderful aftermarket plugs from Metra. Makes life so much easier. We just plug it all together. Make sure you get that click, and now everything is wired. No doubt on the polarity of the speaker, everything will play correctly and they won't come loose. Now we will take our great KS68s from Kicker. We will drop them right into that baffle. And here again, what we might want to do is go again and find those holes. Make sure we find that factory fastener. We've got that bright red fastener. We align our speaker and we go down and bolt it back together with the factory screws. As part of our upgrade on a factory audio system, we've got our speakers in place. We want to also make sure we do some sound deadening. A lot of the flat materials in here, the metal portions, they resonate. You get a buzzing sound, you get a very tinny sound from them. And what we're going to do is we're going to use DEI's boom mat. That's going to help us actually transfer some of that resonant energy through this material. This acoustical material actually absorbs that energy, just translates it through its thickness and kills it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to lay out where we're going to put our boom mat. And what we plan to do is not get complete and full coverage, because we really don't need to do that. What we want to do is choose some areas that really are wider, larger, and flatter, and those are the areas that tend to have more resonance through them. So what we'll do is we'll line up our boom mat with the area we want to go with. So we're going to place one large portion right here in the center, and then we're going to cut some strips, and the strips are going to fit right around our speakers and keep those areas quiet. So we're going to peel away the backing, get some of that adhesive exposed, and we're going to line up our pad. What I plan to do here is I'm going to lay down the center pad first, and then we'll work around that. Again, this is a large flat area, so what we want to do is try and lay this down. Now I'm only going to press in the center of this, and what that's going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to actually mold the boom mat to the contours of the back deck. So right here in the center we have a nice flat piece, but then we have a dip right off to the side. Just running my finger along it, I'm able to actually lay that boom mat nice and flat to the rear deck. And this is a good way to get it started. In a moment we'll go over the roller and show how the roller can actually get this material to sit even better once we have it in place. So now we've molded our boom mat to the contours of our rear deck. It's nice and tight to the area. We're going to grab our roller and start rolling that material down. This is where the adhesive really does its job. So we're going to take our roller and just start doing exactly that. Rolling it right over the boom mat, getting it as tight to the surface as possible. Get into your little contoured areas, roll it all in there, get it nice and flat. Make sure you get every corner, bring it right down in there. Again, contoured areas, get it nice and flat. You shouldn't have very many air bubbles at all. It should be pretty flat and smooth. And that's how we keep going. We'll pull this away, make sure we're following again the contours of that rear deck, making sure we have no little gaps or air bubbles or pockets in there. Press it down nice and smooth. Your thumb or your finger works pretty well initially. Get it smooth and flat. Following our contours, keeping everything tight, breaking out the roller. Again, nice and smooth across the surface, tight to the contours, flat everywhere you can, no bubbles, no gaps. So what I'm doing now is making my templates for the boom mat. So what I've done is taken the backing from my initial boom mat, cut it out to a surface or an area that wraps around my speaker a bit. I've already cut my lower piece here, or inner piece if you will, and now I'm using that same template to make a piece to go over top of it. And again, we're not looking to do a complete coverage of the rear deck, just enough to silence it and get more of a dead sound than a tinny sound. So if you get this, you're on your way. Again, laying it down. Now, I do not like to overlap my sound deadening, so this way we don't create a gap. So what I'm going to do here is trim it so it rides right along the edge of my first piece. Everything will sit flat. So now we're getting ready to use the spray-in boom mat. We're going to use it for the same reason as we did the flat panel type. We're going to do some sound deadening. If you hear this, it's a very tinny sound to it. What we're going to do is spray the inside of the trunk area, get some of that resonance down. Now we've already gone ahead and taken out the other panels, but we want to show you how easy it is to remove these panels once you have the pop clips in. This panel is very soft and pliable, comes right out. gets right out of your way, opening everything up. And now what we can do here is spray our sound deadening material over all the panel areas that we want to cover. Anything that sounds kind of tinny is really where we want to focus that spray-on boom mat. So one thing we did do before we start spraying is we did sort of mask off the back seat area. You know, that's a carpeted area, so we want to make sure we're not getting any of our overspray up there. And we're just going to start spraying it in there. We're not looking for full coverage initially. What we want to do is make sure we've shaken the can well. Again, this boom mat spray-on is excellent. It adheres very well to the material. Very little prep other than wiping it down, making sure you don't have a lot of particles on there. And we're going to go and start right in this well. Again, we're not looking for full coverage initially. What we want to do is make sure we coat the areas we need done. We really don't need to interfere with the areas that are already done by the factory. We can get around the entire well, and I think this is great. We'll come back in a moment after a bit of setup time, and we'll complete the coverage. So as you can see, you can sort of see through it. And again, we're not looking for total coverage right now. We are just looking for getting the areas that we want initially. So we've completed spraying our second coat. We now have full coverage in the areas we want. That includes the entire well area and the panel back here. We also now have gone up along the top there. So everything is fully coated. It took us one can. Excellent coverage from the boom mat spray on, and couldn't be happier with the results. Really great stuff. Looking forward to hearing the sound difference with our big exhaust and everything going through. This will really help to quiet us down.